Hey yo, how's it going? Entropy here today with another video. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile, a budget deck profile, and to begin, I guess I define budget as something that's free-to-play friendly, something that doesn't have a lot of triple rares, and even if they are triple rares, they're more easily accessible without using gems or packs. So let's take a look at that deck. So I mean, it was always on the left side, but now in the main screen, you can see, um, you know, I played around with this deck for quite a bit ever since I got like 2 Ezels from rank rewards. So let's look at the deck. So you have 4 PGs. I mean, you can't really play a competitive deck without 4 PGs. And then the only other high rarity card is 4 Ezels. Now, yes, one of them is SP. I got to rank 30 something on the Ezel season. So I didn't get the 4th normal common copy, but yes, that's good enough to get an extra SP copy. So that means I have a playset of Ezels, and as a high roll deck, you honestly don't really need a lot. You just need to hit your crits. And the reason why you can afford to play 9 crits on Ezel is because, well, Ezel is just such a strong card. It helps you sustain your late game plays without the draws, and gives you that crit pressure with so much power that Ezel has. You're definitely going to hit on your Ezel attack, and proccing a crit will make or break games for your opponent. So let's look at the card choices other than Ezel and the PG. As you can see, the name is Bronze Ezel, and that's because every other card, other than the starter, I guess, is bronze rarity. It's common, it's dirt, it's nothing. I did not roll a single pack of set 5, and I stick to it. This deck works decently well. It wins games, it steals games fast, and even if you lose, your opponent's usually at 4 or 5 damage. So, I mean, you play your 4 8Ks, you play your 4 10Ks, you have to play these at 4 because, well, first of all, vanillas are great. Second of all, your ride chain lets you pull into Ezel faster and more consistently. As you can see from the grade 3 lineup, you only have 4 main ride targets. Everything else is honestly really trash. But you gotta play with, the hand that you've been dealt with. In terms of the other cards, I play Sagramore. Well, Sagramore is an interesting pick. It lets you drop one, draw one, and that's because, as we talked about before, you have a lot of trash grade 3s. Gigantic Crusher, trash. Holy Mage, I don't even know how to pronunciate this card, trash. And Slagle Double Edge, Slagle Double Trash. The other grade 1 slot, you play the Disciple of Pain, the damage self-damager, as well as 4 of the Master of Pain self-damager. It's great, you get to trigger Ezel faster, and you need it because this deck desperately needs to drive that advantage as soon as possible. And there is some utility in denying your opponent's heals during your turn, as well as helping you proc your heals and putting your triggers and PGs back into the deck. We will have a gameplay after I talk about it, so let's see if I can actually demonstrate it. And then for the last few cards that I really want to talk about, I play 3 of the Slagle Swords, 9+3s, and 2 of the Wing Blader Knight. So Wing Blader Knight's when you have more regards than your opponent, you get +3. There is another 8+3, which is like if you have less cards than your opponent, it gets 8+3. I think Wing Blader Knight is the better card for this variant because Ezel lets you fill your board fast enough that Wing Blader Knight generally can have its 8+3, and it's easier to set it up in case you really don't have more regards than your opponent. Well, just play out your hand and have more regards than your opponent, and then if it's 5v5, then have your other rearguard hit your opponent's rearguard first, and then it's 5v4. Wing Blader Knight procs, and you have an 11k attacker. Sometimes the problem with Ezel is that you will end up calling grade 3s. That's okay, put it behind the Vanguard slot. Your Ezel still gets that 10k buff, at least 10k. Ezel's 11k, I guess. But generally speaking, you will be using Ezel every turn if possible to gain that advantage, filter through your deck, and hit triggers faster. So without further ado, I guess let's go into a quick game. But yeah, I mean, tell me if you do enjoy these types of videos. I really like the way that the ladder system is built in Vanguard 0. It does let you play decks that you generally won't or don't really want to, uh, because, well, yes, Ezel is really fun, but I mean, as a free-to-play player, you really have to save your packs and resources for the clans you really, really want, not just the clans you really want. Um, and I guess it's still nice to have a change of pace playing a new clan, and then, well, sacking your opponent because night crits is always wonderful. So we're playing against Great Nature, not necessarily meta, but don't underestimate them. Here, gotta save the SP one. We're going second, so we can mulligan more aggressively because we draw 2 cards instead of 1, and we still have 1 extra turn to search for our grade 2. So yeah, we have the right chain. That's great. The elephant. Locks right chain. So yeah, I mean, for those of you who I guess rarely see this right chain because it's honestly not as strong or not you know, generally in meta decks, they buffed it. The starter is now 5k instead of 4k, and if you miss your Trek top 7, you get to call it out to the rearguard circle, so you minus less. We ride the 8k, great defense. I'll put it to the side, I guess. And then here, we're not going to be aggressive because we need the 8k to do the superior ride. If I do want to. I mean, I have 2 Ezels in my hand already. So getting rid of 1 more trigger in your deck might not be the best idea. But we'll have to see what our opponent does, you know. If they're greedy and then they play out a lot of rearguards, which Great Nature generally does, then we can punish by superior riding and then calling out the grade 3s. Let's see what happens. Okay. The Compass Lion. The Locks. So, okay. Trigger. Not good enough to block the next attack, but that's fine. And another good thing about this deck is, you know, it's actually quite consistent in getting our Ezels, and having that twin drive earlier actually really compensates on the minus that you have in terms of resources that you use to superior ride. Okay, Red Bull main. We call this out superior ride. All right, that's good. We're gonna call out this. We can call this out. So here I call out the full front row of grade 3s, and this is honestly, I like this playstyle. It's really aggressive. Like, if your opponent gets rid of them, then it's fine because they're gonna clog your hand anyways. If they don't, well, it's an extra board presence that helps you proc your cards that require field, and you know, it's fine. So we already showed 5 triggers and the opponent hasn't showed a single one. Pretty lucky. The Locks procs. I think Great Nature is honestly a pretty hard clan to play, because, like, especially with the Locks ride chain, you have to set up your board before you ride, because your skills activate on ride. And I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing to call out a grade 2 to use Locks, because it does get retired at the end of turn. But what we can tell from this play is that my opponent probably doesn't have a lot of grade 1s, because, well, he obviously wants to proc lock skill. But I would personally retire grade 1 instead of grade 2, because the grade 2 at least has intercept utility, right? But we will see what happens. Drive check, no trigger. So I think we saw 2 PGs go to the bottom of the deck. That's pretty good. We play crits, you know. It's nice. Alright, right skip. So now that we're at 3 damage and my opponent's at 3 damage, if I use the Disciple of Pain, what happens is, well, I get to activate Limit Break, and my first attack to my opponent, their heal doesn't proc. Alright, we get that 10k, so we can build 16k columns. That beats 11k. Another thing is Disciple of Pain skill is that it prioritizes face down cards, and we just counterblasted a crit, right? So that means the chance of returning a crit is now 50%. So that's pretty good. So now I'm considering like, oh, if I counterblast again, right, the chance of returning that trigger is actually lower. But actually, the next card is a PG. The next card that we will counterblast is a PG, and returning a PG is actually not that bad. So if I do counterblast, the chance of returning a good card is actually 66% now, instead of 50%. So, in addition to the fact that I don't mind building up my board in the early game, I will do exactly that. Didn't call it the grade 2 because the grade 2 self-damager will then influence the probability of returning something good, right? We can choose to put the grade 2 down, and I will. So let's battle. So the chance of my opponent having a PG is not too high, probably holding 1, at most 2, right? So let's, we didn't hit a crit, but that's fine. We push them to 5, and then we put the damage back. Let's see. All right, we put the PG back, right? That's good, that's good. Especially since our hand doesn't have a PG. So actually prioritizing the PG return is, or having, a chance of having the PG return is actually not a bad call. Compass Lion, yeah, lacks grade 1, so probably 2 PGs in hand, I see. So Leopold, counterblast 1 lets it come back to the same spot on the board at the end of turn, which means you proc your Humbuske for counterblast 1. And then that means the opponent gets 2 extra grade 1s for their next offensive play, which is good because they're seemingly missing out on these boosters that will help them hit numbers. Oh, you put a PG back, it goes back to the damage. Hey. It's okay. Alright. So I guess we have to win next turn. Does the Humbuske shuffle? Oh, well, I guess that's it. Didn't even get to do the finishing blow. But yeah, I mean, the opponent had a complete deck, lots of triple rares and shinies and, all that good stuff. And meanwhile, we're playing a deck full of copper cards, dirt, trash, crafting material, whatevers. So yeah, this game is definitely not too free-to-play unfriendly. I mean, of course, you still need to grind. That's a given for most games. But, if you're bored of playing like the optimal gold deck, feel free to come join us, peasants, and play this bronze Ezel deck. For those who don't have 4 Ezels, this deck is still works with 2. I'd say 2 is a good number, at least 2. And if you don't have 2, you can still I guess consider don't I wouldn't play more draws. I was gonna say play more draws so you could draw into your dry chain more efficiently or more consistently, but playing draws will just deter the firepower that this deck really needs to catch up to the more optimal builds. But anyways, tell me if you enjoyed this video or not, and I'll see if I can build and play more of these. If you want me to play more meta decks, I will do that too. But sometimes you just really want to change of pace, and this deck is exactly what it gave me. Test this out. Tell me if you like it. If you have any suggestions, let me know down below. And I hope I'll see you guys next time. See you. Bye.